Pittsburgh Steelers special teams coordinator Danny Smith believes the Steelers got a major upgrade and a game changer when they signed this player during free agency. So, the Steelers, there's been many talk recently about the upgrades they got to inside linebacker and other positions, and the downgrades that they got at wide receiver. But the one position that we don't talk about, in which Danny Smith wants to bring to light, is the punter position, in which he feels as though will be a game changer for the Steelers and someone they brought in that is a major upgrade. But first, before I get more into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also, like the video. Now let's get right back into it. So, the position that you could probably assume that Danny Smith is talking about is a special teams position, and it is the punter position, in which the Steelers signed Cameron Johnston this offseason and let go of Presley Harvin III. So, let me just read you this quote from Danny Smith talking about this big upgrade that the Steelers signed this offseason. So, here it is. I love him. He's a real pro. He's strong. He's good. He's got game. And I call game different types of punts. We could do a lot of things with him in that game. He's a pro. I love him. I really do. He's going to really help us. I think you're going to see a big improvement in that area with him. End quote. So, even though he didn't really mean to do it, Danny Smith here did take a jab at former Pittsburgh Steelers punter Presley Harvin III and also the team's 2023 unit and just the units prior, in which was not good. A group that really struggled last year and really since Harvin came into the NFL at the punter position in which they drafted him. So, there's been many woes year after year at the punter position, and now Danny Smith feels as though Johnston could really help this team, and he could really do some different things in which Danny Smith calls for him to do. And he is right, because just looking at the numbers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they finished last season with one of the NFL's worst punting units. They ranked 31st in gross average at only 44 yards per punt. That was second last in the league, only ahead of the New Orleans Saints. Their net ranking was only slightly better at 29th in the league, and that was 39.1 yards per punt. Their touchback rate on punts was among the 10th worst and highest, while their inside the 20 rate was only averaged at even. So there's a really bad punter, really bad unit just last season. Too many punts were caught at the 19 instead of at the 9. That's the biggest way I could put it. So many punts in which you believe that Presley Harvin III had a big leg, he should have booted it, it would be a shanked punt. And the shanked punts in which you think, hey, he only needs to put it a few yards to put them in a good position. No, he would punt it through and it would bounce through and it would just be a bad punt. So when the Steelers needed it the most, it just seemed as though they could not rely on their punting game to get the job done, to put the defense in a really good defensive position. It would really end up hurting the defense because they would put the defense in a bad situation and have to allow them to make a stop. Instead of having them to go the whole field, the defense was put in a bad position. So, obviously, he didn't mean to take that shot at Presley Harvin III maybe, but he did because that punting unit was really bad. And he believes as though many things could be done differently, and he could actually ask Cameron Johnston to do different stuff that he couldn't ask Presley Harvin III to. And even if Danny Smith is calling out or taking a shot at Presley Harvin III on purpose or not on purpose, you have to look at the inconsistencies and realize this isn't just Danny Smith talking about it now. It was also Mike Tomlin calling it out after games last season. Mike Tomlin would be at the post-game press conference talking about how the punting group needs to be better and how it's so inconsistent. And he was calling out Presley Harvin III many times, so this isn't the first time. And also, you look at Presley Harvin III with the Steelers, And it seemed as though the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though he started off early and really good in preseason and the start of the regular season, it seemed as though that he had to limp to the end of the year. And the Pittsburgh Steelers were just kind of stringing him along and couldn't cut him, couldn't do anything with him because they really had no other punter. And they just had to wait until the end of the year to get rid of him. Because when you look at December and January, he managed only 42.2 yards per punt with a 38-yard net average. Obviously, net average would be the longest kick, in which would be 42, but then it would be returned 4 yards, so it nets out at 38 yards per punt. So, there's a big thing with the Steelers. Big thing that Jordan Berry, many punters, many kickers, Pat McAfee even calls out on his podcast all the time. The weather in Pittsburgh. The weather in Pittsburgh plays a major factor with those numbers, and you really have to be a really good punter to be able to punt in Pittsburgh. So the Steelers getting a rookie, someone who then played like 2 or 3 years with the team, it really doesn't benefit them coming into the season. But he was supposed to be a big leg punter, but he just didn't work out for the Steelers. So you have to be a really good punter to punt in Pittsburgh based off what the other punters here in the past said and what Pat McAfee has said because of the weather and kind of the river being behind the stadium, so it kind of deals with the wind and stuff like that. So hopefully Cameron Johnston is able to be that better punter in which could handle that weather and handle being in the stadium playing in Pittsburgh. And just looking at the numbers for Cameron Johnston, this could be the best punter the Pittsburgh Steelers have had in a really long time. Unless everything in terms of numbers just falls dramatically down, you look at Johnston and he's had the experience playing in the cold and with the Philadelphia Eagles. He played with Ohio State as well in the cold. And he posted 47.7 yards per punt last year, with a net that nearly equaled Harvin's gross. Hang time isn't Johnston's strong suit, but accuracy, placement, and leg strength are. So you look at Johnston, and he could be a major upgrade for the Steelers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers special teams coordinator, Danny Smith, believes so too. So that's enough on Johnston. But you look at all the upgrades that the Pittsburgh Steelers made this season in terms of inside linebacker. They signed some guys that traded for guys at the cornerback position. And then you look at what they've done on offense line. Those are all upgrades that get talked about a lot, how they're going to help this team. And then you look at some of the downgrades they made, trading away Deontay Johnson, all the talk surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver position, and in terms of how that needs to get better. But the one position in which does not get talked about in terms of the difference from last year to this year is that punter position, because that played a huge role in the Steelers season last year. Like I said, it could either hurt or help the position of the football. When the Steelers go out to punt, they're not expecting a shanked punt, but it seemed like it happened more often than not last season. So even though this position doesn't get talked about in terms of upgrades, this is one of the positions that the Steelers really upgrade in terms of numbers compared to Johnston and Harvin. That could be a difference maker for the team. When you go out there, you want the best punt available. You want the best punt to happen. You want the best field position. It's a field position game more likely than not with the Steelers. And it's been like that for a while with Mike Tomlin. So you expect good field position, but it just did not happen. And now this upgrade could really help the Steelers team, both offense and defense, not giving up as much points, but also getting more points. So with that being said, this is just me talking about Danny Smith's comments and how this punter position upgrade really doesn't get talked about a lot. Hopefully Cameron Johnston is able to redo this whole unit. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on this position, on Danny Smith's comments, and do you believe this is a major upgrade that just isn't getting talked about enough compared to the other positions on the Steelers that get more coverage from the media and just fans in general? Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. I've covered all this offseason. I'll continue to cover it all as we get into training camp when the offense actually faces the defense, highlights highlights, analysis, everything covering that. Also preseason, regular season, back to the off season. I'll cover everything, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications for the channel, like, comment, and I'll see you guys all later. Until the next video, I'm out. Peace.